Endless Hustle is presented by Routine. Routine helps you unlock optimal health and daily performance by leveraging AI, in-home testing, and the latest in digital health tools to create a completely personalized micronutrient formula full of vitamins, minerals, and specialty compounds precisely dosed for your body based on your unique DNA, blood tests, and lifestyle habits. The process is simple, and thousands of members are choosing Routine and reporting results like more energy, better stress management, improved mental clarity, and more. Visit routine.co to join. All right. It is a healthy day on the Endless Hustle today because I've got arguably the best and most famous trainer in sports joining me, Tim Grover. And Tim, I think I made a deal with your publicity team that you've got to give me free lessons. I'm just kidding.
Ask away. I got you.
Trust me, that's the wrong person to give permission to. I'll show up wherever you're at and be like, let's do some Tim Grover training. Hey, man, congratulations, first of all, on the new book. And I wasn't joking. You arguably are the best and most well-known trainer. I mean, you've trained MJ, Kobe. It's incredible. How did this all start? I mean, when you go back all the way to the beginning, how did Tim Grover begin this journey?
Well, you know what? It's crazy. So both my parents are of Indian descent. All right. So if you know anything about Indian parents, you have two options for education and job. Number one is a doctor, and number two is a doctor. That was it. So I went to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And one of my counselors said, hey, there's a new course out called kinesiology, exercise science. I think you'd be interested in. I said, all right. I took a couple of courses. I absolutely loved it. And then from there, I was just like, I was playing college basketball at the time also. And I had told my parents, I said, I think I found what I wanted to do. And they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to train professional athletes. I was like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? I mean, there's just like, there's no job description in the newspaper. That's where you used to look in the want ads, and they used to have, there's no job description for trainer for professional athletes. And they were like, I was just like, yeah, this is what I really want to do. And my parents were like, all right, listen, you know what we want you to do. And my dad said, all right, listen, I'll let you pursue what you want to do, but you still have to take the entrance exam to medical school. I said, okay, I'll do that. So the first time I took it, I absolutely bombed. I bombed it on purpose. And my dad goes, nice try. I already signed you up for the next one. And I took the next one, scored fairly well, enough to get into a few selective schools. And I made a deal with them. I said, listen, if I can't make this go, I said, I will go back. I will go to medical school. So I actually finished college with a master's degree in exercise science, and was like, okay, really didn't have a job, didn't have an opportunity. Back then, the minimum wage was $3.35. So I took a job at a local health club with a master's degree, making $3.35. And actually ended up being one of the best things I ended up doing, because I had all the knowledge about the training, but I had no practical experience in it, not much. So this way it got me a chance to really work on my crafts. So I started to train everybody that wanted to lose weight, get into shape, housewives, recreational athletes, tennis players, kids, whatever they wanted to do. And I built a reputation of, getting results. Then I was at that for almost 3 years. Making good money, making, decent money back then. Then I saw a little article in the paper saying, and I knew I was running out of time because my parents were like, all right, what's going on here? But at least he's working. I saw a little article in the paper that said how Michael Jordan was tired of taking the physical abuse from the Detroit Pistons. I said, okay. I've never worked with a professional athlete. I said, you know what? I'm going to send out letters to all the other Bulls players. Now, this was before emails, texts, any of that stuff. So you had to handwrite letters. So I hand wrote letters to 14 of the Chicago Bulls players. The one person I did not write a letter to was Michael Jordan. So I was like, I've never worked with a professional athlete. There's no way they're going to let me work with him. So one of the letters actually made it, or a few of the letters actually made it to the players, and one letter was sitting open in a locker, and Michael actually reached inside that locker and pulled out the letter and read it and gave it to the team physician and athletic trainer for the team at the time and said, hey, find out what this kid's about. So I get a call from the athletic trainer at that time, and he goes, "Hey, we have somebody that's interested in your services." I was like, "Okay." They didn't tell me who it was. I'm thinking it's one of the players that really doesn't play much. They're like, "Okay,
It's like Will Purdue or something.
yeah, way down, way down. I think way down on the line." I was like, "All right." So then for 3 months, they literally drilled me more than I was when I was in college about my knowledge, practicals, everything. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. Still didn't know who they were interviewing me for. Then 3 months pass by, and then they go and say, "Hey, listen, we want you to go meet the client. Here's the address." All right. They didn't tell me who it was. So I look at the address. I drive out there. It's in the suburbs. I drive out there. This is before the big gated house and all that other stuff. So I ring the doorbell once, no answer. I ring the doorbell twice, no answer. I ring it the third time. I was like, all right, I just been set up, or he's not, or this person's not home. Michael Jordan ends up opening up the door. And I had never worked with a professional athlete before. Luckily, I'm not a starstruck person. So I was like, all right, I'm prepared for anything they're going to throw at me because I did my homework on all the different athletes, what their needs were. So Michael and I, he invited me in the house. Big mistake. I had Converse gym shoes on, so I had to take those off before I went in the house. So we go downstairs, talk for about 30, 40 minutes. I explained my plan to him. I said, "Hey, this is what I can do. This is my philosophy." He goes, he was all about, "Listen, I just want to get bigger and stronger. I'm tired of taking the abuse. I want to be more athletic. I want to be able to do things." And the plans everyone else had given them were completely different than what I had said. I said, "Well, let's focus in on something else first." I said, "Michael, you have little nagging injuries. You always have a little hamstring issue. You have a groin issue. You have ankle issues." I said, "Let's address those problems." I said, "If we address those problems, you're automatically going to be stronger. You're automatically going to be more athletic. You're automatically going to be a better basketball player." And nobody had kind of presented those things to him. And he said, "I'll try it for 30 days. And 30 days turned into 15 years.
Do you understand how fucking bonkers that story is, Tim? Like,
I can't even believe it when I say it sometimes. I'm like, it should be like a fairy tale in Disneyland or something.
so I actually played in high school with Kobe Bryant. I tell this all the time. I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I played in summer league teams with him. And I say it to this day, the best player I've ever seen on the court, and I've been on the court with a ton of NBA players, was Kobe Bryant. I'll never forget at 15 or 16 years old, that kid's mindset. He was already an assassin. I mean,
yes.
He wanted to kill you. And Jordan had that same thing. And what it makes you realize, and you talk about this in your book, Winning, that mindset is probably the number one factor to success, is that ninja mindset. Do you know it immediately when you meet a Kobe or an MJ or the countless other people you've worked with? Can you sense that assassin mindset immediately?
You can't sense it immediately because when you sit down with an individual, they always give you the right answers. They always give you the right. I always get individuals that come up to me and say, "Listen, I'll do anything." Well, their definition of anything and my definition of anything is completely different. All right. But, when you see individuals like an MJ, you see individuals like a Kobe, they have a track record, not only about talking about it, but actually producing results and living that mentality and doing those things and not doing the things that are necessary to become those individuals. The way they handled adversity so early in their lives. Michael getting cut as a sophomore from the varsity basketball team. Kobe, being an individual playing basketball in Italy when everybody else is playing soccer and not really fitting in and not knowing the language and doing all those things, and still constantly pursuing his greatness and that mental sharpness. So you could see the way individuals handle adversity at a very young age, that develops that mindset to be what you call as that ninja mindset. It's just like no prisoners. I'm ultra focused. I know how to get in this zone. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm going to win at all costs.
Yeah, so you nailed it right there. And you've been on, this is a testament to how big a deal you've become in the sporting world. You've been on this massive press tour for this book the stories are incredible. So I don't want to rehash them. People just should buy the book and hear all these incredible stories, or they can Google you because there's a million articles. Again, a huge testament. But
Thank you.
the thing that blows my mind is when you look at NBA players today or athletes in general today and the conditioning. I mean, you see the LeBron workouts today.
Yes,
MJ was kind of the beginning of that.
he
Guys,
was.
when you started having that impact, and obviously everybody saw the muscle growth, the conditioning, and how did you see the change around the league when they started seeing what was happening with MJ with your work?
Well, what happened was, we started to do things that nobody else had done before. Michael was the first professional athlete that I knew of, other than boxers and tracks and people that did Olympics, that had somebody designated strictly for him that said, hey, you are in charge of my well-being. You're in charge of my hydration. You're in charge of my food. You're in charge of my injury prevention. You're in charge of my strength and conditioning. You're in charge of my rest. You're in charge of all these things. I want a plan developed for me, not for a general plan that's for everybody on the team. I want something that's designated for me. So now a lot of individuals are starting to see that, hey, everybody's body is a little different. The way you react to certain foods, the way your schedule is set up. So Michael was the first one that really opened the door to say, hey, listen, find that individual or a group of individuals that have an expertise in things that you don't, and let them enhance your abilities. So then you got to see with the results, Michael, everybody got to see how his body started to slowly change, and he actually became more athletic and more durable. I mean, the testimony, one of the most biggest testaments to our work is the amount of games that he played. I mean, during a span of 10 years, he had only missed 6 games. Only 6.
There's a highlight reel. This is, I get into death battles with people about the 80s and 90s versus today's basketball where you can't touch anybody.
Right.
When you see the highlight reel of Michael Jordan being clotheslined every other game and understand the punishment that he had to take. And look, he's a big guy. He was 6'6". I mean, but compared to like LeBron, who's a freaking linebacker today,
Yep.
to take the abuse from Bill Lane Beers, Rick Mahorns of the world, I can't even imagine what that's like catching a small elbow from those guys. So when you look at basketball back then and what you had to really prep him through back then versus what you're seeing today, are you a fan of where the sport has gone and the no contact, or do you relish in looking at a guy like MJ and knowing that you guys built something together to go through wars?
The game has changed, but listen, I grew up in the physicality era, so I enjoy the physicality, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side. The players back then took pride on not having the opponent score all those points, where you had to play both ends of the floor, not just playing one end of the floor. Obviously, the game is a lot more open with the 3-pointers. People are it's more of a sprint now, where they go back and forth and they try to outscore everyone. But there are some, how can I describe it? There are some nuances that the teamwork isn't quite as cohesive as it used to be. Now they have special players, they have specialty players. This player can shoot, this player can do this thing, and there's a lot of wasted movement with the dribbles, which I wasn't accustomed to in the past. And the way the rules are set up now, the rules are set up to make it easier to score. Because you can't hand check and you can't do those things. But you know what? Those are the rules now. That's the way that's the way the game is designed. Even football has changed. To make it less contact on the quarterback, easier to score. So I still enjoy the sport. Would I like to see a little mixture of both? Yes, I would. Would I like to see each team to have a dominant big man and to have some value inside of, the guy that gets the ball inside and pounds the thing and does all the hooks and all that other stuff? Yeah, I would love to see that a little bit more. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
So when I was actually thinking about the first time I became aware of you, and I can't remember the exact moment. It might have been a 60 Minutes piece. It was one of those shows where they were profiling your work with MJ. But when you start becoming, in a word, famous yourself, because they're showing MJ's training regimen and they're like, here's Tim Grover, the guy actually training him. What was that like, and how did that explode your business?
Well, obviously, it brought a lot of attention and notoriety. This was before the social media era and all that other stuff, before Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Even if it was available back then, I'm not that individual to go boast about my results. To me, what my clients do and how they excel, that's my advertisement. For me to go out and put a post on something is not as valuable as to have the client actually mention my name in a piece or say or say something. I've always relished the individual of the person being in the background. That's how it's their job to shine. It's my job to keep them shining, be able to perform at the highest level and continue to shine for as long as I can. But you know what, Michael always, a lot of people used to approach Michael and they would say, and I know you've probably heard this story where they would say, hey, listen, can I use Grover? And then MJ's standard line was, listen, I don't pay Grover to train me. I pay him not to train anybody else, which is the biggest compliment that you can get. So everybody knew that they had to go to the gatekeeper to get permission just to work with me. And for the first 3 years, he didn't allow me to work with anybody else. He didn't. Then he slowly afterwards, after he won a couple of titles, and he was like, okay, listen, you can start training other individuals, but only during the off season. Here are the parameters. Here's the time. And he said, let each individual know that if I call, you got to stop whatever you're doing and you need to leave. I saw everyone knew that. Everybody knew that. And how I got to Kobe was through MJ. So that was one of my biggest things. In 2007, Kobe reached out to MJ and said, hey, my knees are actually, he goes, they're killing me. And he just said, man, he goes, I don't know if I can keep this pace up anymore. And he said, MJ said, hey, I'm not using my guy anymore, because he was long retired. But that, he goes, why don't you give Grover a call? And he said, hey, well, tell me about Grover. He goes, well, Grover really, really knows his stuff, but he is the biggest asshole you'll ever meet. Best compliment I ever got from MJ, because he didn't call me a asshole. He called me the asshole. And what he meant by that is, listen, he's going to tell you when you're wrong. He's going to hold you accountable. He's not a yes guy. He's going to, he's just the way in the book, the language I use in the book of winning is the same way I talk to these individuals. That's the way I know. And Kobe said, that's absolutely perfect for me. That's exactly what I need. So that's how, so I was blessed enough to go from that relationship to that next relationship. And, I'm not going to lie. Listen, would I've been at the same level without having MJ? Absolutely. Absolutely not. I mean, am I blessed? And was I prepared for the opportunity for him to be my first professional client? And I had other individuals that offered me way more money, that said, hey, come work for me. And I turned those individuals down.
Of course, it's like giving up the Rolls Royce of Rolls Royces. You don't piss him off.
Exactly. You don't, you just like, but there are individuals that go for that short gain. And I'm looking now, first of all, you can see it in professional sports. There's very little loyalty among individuals, among teams, and so forth. I was brought up, listen, you look out for the people that looked out for you. This is an individual that gave me my chance, gave me an opportunity when no one else, he didn't have to. I had no resume to say, hey, I'm going to try. I've trained this many professional athletes. I'm 2 years younger than he was. Well,
we've talked a lot about the physicality, but the people we're talking about were probably the most mentally strong athletes to potentially ever walk this earth. They're at least somewhere on that top 10 list. We just had an enormous story this weekend with Naomi Osaka, who obviously withdrew from the French Open and talked about. We just had an enormous story this weekend with Naomi Osaka, who obviously withdrew from the French Open and talked about her mental health issues. As someone who is able to get inside the minds of people like MJ and Kobe and so many others, when you see what Naomi had to go through, what are your feelings around that?
Well, you know what? That's what the book's about. It explains, everybody thinks winning is this glorious thing, and it is, but no one understands the things that everything else that winning brings. I mean, look, she won her first major when she was a teenager. So now all of a sudden, everywhere she goes, everything she does is under the spotlight. Everything is scrutinized. Everything that she says, there's no place that you can go. So you basically, all of a sudden, when you win that big competition, your life is no longer yours, especially nowadays with the social media thing and everything. And she said it, she goes, listen, I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert. All right. Now having to deal with everything that has to go on, the pressure and the language of winning, and having to take that bus from winning back to health, back to winning again. It takes a toll on people. It really does. She's not the first professional athlete that's had to walk away. I mean, there's, MJ, after people can't even imagine. I was around for those things, like Lily, after each game, to have 100 reporters waiting by your locker to ask you every single question of what was going on, anything that went on in your personal life, anything that went on your business. It really starts to take a toll. And that's the side of winning that nobody really understands, how much of a mental pressure and stress that it puts on these individuals. They look at them and they say, these individuals are so, like you said, they're so mentally tough in their sports. They're so, they're so laser focused. They win over and over again. But outside the sport, they're still human beings. They have the same emotions. They have the same trigger points. They have the same issues that everybody has to deal with. But they just can't say, no, I'm not talking to the media today, or I'm not talking to this individual, or go somewhere and hide, because it's going to get blown into this big story.
When you're yelling at MJ and yelling at Kobe,
Never yelled at, and never had to raise my voice at either one of those guys.
Let me rephrase. When you're being an a-hole in the moment.
There you go. Okay.
Do you ever kind of take a step back in your own mind and think, I'm being an a-hole to two of the greatest athletes to ever walk this earth? How cool is this shit?
I did. You know what? But I had to earn that level of respect with those individuals. And they, did they always agree with everything I had to say? Absolutely not. Or did they respect that I would not back down from what I knew was right, and the ability to prove what I was right? And I'll give you a great point on this. I literally had told, when MJ was transitioning from baseball back to basketball, all right, I had told him we don't have enough time. I said, I don't have enough time to transition that body back. I said, you spent 18 months making it a baseball body. Now in 2 months, you want to turn it back into a basketball body. I said, it can't be done. I said, it can't be done. I said, we can get you close. There'll be glimpses, but it can't be. And I get the total F you don't know what you're talking about, and so forth. And he goes out and drops a double nickel on the Knicks and all this other stuff, and he kind of keeps giving me the glare and so forth. When the playoffs came around, then we got a chance to see that he was 90% MJ, but he wasn't 100% MJ. Until the last dance, he finally admitted it and said, I didn't have enough time. It was the first time he admitted it. So I waited. I stopped working him with in 96, maybe 90. Now I do count. Well, you got to count the Wizard years too. So let's say in the late 90s, I stopped working with him. This is 2000. It was 2020 that I finally got validation for what I had been saying all along up to this point. And I was so shocked. I was like, what? What did he just say?
When you first start working with Kobe, and obviously he's the closest thing, both skill-wise and mentally, that the league has ever seen to MJ. When you get in there, how much did he let you in on how much he emulated MJ? And he's, even as a kid, he was the most curious guy. Everything, I know you've talked about this at length. Why?
Yes.
how much did he actually want to almost become MJ, or did he see his own vision and I'm going to steal from MJ?
Exactly. He had his own vision, and he stole from everybody. It wasn't, anybody he could steal from, he stole from Michael, he stole from Scotty, he stole from Dennis Rodman, Oscar Robertson, you name it. He stole from, I mean, we used to watch old films of Bob Cousy, Pete Maravich, all those individuals. He stole from everyone, and he wanted to create his own recipe to develop the best Kobe Bryant, but he knew he was chasing the ghost. He knew he was chasing MJ, had those 6 championship rings. Everybody was comparing him to that individual. And everybody like, oh, they was like, oh, he's emulating Michael. Well, listen, if you're going to try to emulate somebody, you emulate the best person out there. You don't emulate someone that doesn't make a team. So he was doing the right thing. He was gathering knowledge from all these individuals, studying what they were doing, their mannerisms, how they played players, how they handled different situations on and off the court. So he wanted to be the best Kobe Bryant out there. So when I started working with him, one of the reporters had asked him, said, hey, we've heard that you've hired Michael's former trainer, Tim Grover. Says, what do you think about him? He goes, he ain't done shit for me. He goes, ask me at the end of the year. I just started from him. He goes, I know what he's done for MJ, but he ain't done nothing for me yet. And, obviously, you knew Kobe, and that's exactly what he was like. He's like, I don't know. And which, I relish that. I relish that because I'm just as competitive as those individuals were. I didn't want to live on just the laurels of being MJ's guy. And you see a lot of individuals in here, they have programs and they live off of one guy. People were like, oh, you did it for MJ. Now go and do it for somebody else. All right, well, I go and did it for Kobe. Well, now I go and do it for somebody else. Okay, and I did it for Wade and thousands of other individuals through the league. Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen, Akeem Olajuwon, Tracy McGrady. The list, I can go on and on for individuals that people don't even know that I've worked with those individuals.
As exceptional as MJ and Kobe were, who was the greatest athletic unicorn you've ever worked with?
The greatest athletic unicorn that I've ever worked with. Let me think about this for a little while.
I have a guess, but I'm curious to hear who you say.
I'm going to give you a name that's not that individuals are going to be like, they may not even know who this person is. His name was Will Bynum.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Now, the reason I'm saying that, Will Bynum was barely 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'10" at best. His athletic ability was absolutely off the charts. Off the charts. Him and the other person I would mention would probably be Corey Maggette. They were just absolutely crazy. Now, on the court, and I mentioned this in my first book, to watch Charles Barkley do what he did at 250 pounds and an individual who was barely 6'4", it was absolutely amazing.
By the way, the crime of Charles Barkley is this generation has no fucking idea how great a player he was, because
not a clue.
They see him on NBA on TNT, and he's obviously become the most famous broadcaster in America. They forget that he was a fucking stallion.
Yes. Yeah, the way and everything, he could pass, he could shoot, he could rebound, he could do it all. You're right, absolutely. They have no clue. They just look at him now and they're just like, oh, who in the hell is this guy? Did he ever play? Did he ever do anything? And just like you said, Google him, pull up some highlights on YouTube, and you'll be like, no. You're like, yeah, that's him.
And by the way, wasn't always in shape.
No.
Like was fat a lot of the time when he was playing.
Yes, yeah. He really enjoyed his basketball, and he enjoyed his time off the court too at the same time.
His gambling, his legendary gambling. Tim, one of the reasons I started this series was to talk to successful people like you about how they are able to enhance themselves in their careers. So my question to you, Tim Grover, is how do you continue to elevate in your work?
Well, that's exactly what you said. I'm glad you used that term. So I've done tons of these podcasts lately, radio shows, TV thing. You're the first person that's used elevate. Everyone else uses motivate. All right. And I would say motivation is entry level. All right. Motivation is entry level. How do you continue to elevate what you have? If you're still in the motivation stage, you're not even close to elevate. Listen, I still do that. I still do the same things I used to do when pay attention to the details when I'm working with the athletes, with the organizations I work now, with the CEOs. I pay attention to every little detail. I educate myself. I'm constantly learning. I don't pass any judgment on anybody. Everybody that has something to say, I find it, I think of it as interesting. Is it something I can use? Is it not something I can't use? And what I've done is, and this is very important, and this is going to be important to the listeners out there. I actually go out there and still try to master things. People love, they love to chase greatness. Everybody's chasing greatness. And I was like, well, for me, anything I'm learning, anything I'm trying to become better, everything I'm going to get better at, I have to first catch and master average. Once I catch and master average, then my next step is to catch and master good. Once I've catch and mastered good, then I'm going to go chase greatness in whatever else I'm trying to pursue. And that's the most important part. People don't want to master things anymore. You get individuals that, I read 30 books. I read 30 books a month. Okay, tell me what you read in book number 6. They have no clue. Because there's no mastery in anything they're doing. So how I've always done, whatever makes me better, whatever my clients need, I go out and I master that topic to the best of my ability.
Awesome, man. This has been an absolute pleasure, Tim. I could talk to you for hours. I mean, trust me, like I could pick your brain. The shit you've seen and heard and experienced to me is like mind-boggling. And
thank you.
Congratulations. Your book is called Winning. You're everywhere right now. Your stories are everywhere. And it's really a testament. I'm sure your Indian parents who wanted you to be a doctor aren't too upset about how things turned out.
No, they're not. I appreciate it.